The galactic nursery station floated in the neutral zone between three major star systems. It was designed to care for young ones from dozens of species while their parents worked on deep space missions. The facility was a marvel of engineering, with climate-controlled zones, species-specific nutrition dispensers, and advanced security protocols. But today, none of that mattered. Kalen heard the screaming before he reached the Predator wing. The sound made his chest tighten. He quickened his pace down the sterile corridor, his boots squeaking against the polished floor. He was just a maintenance worker, technically not supposed to be in this section during emergency protocols. But something about those cries pulled at him. The Predator wing housed the cubs of species that sat at the top of their respective food chains. Vaxorian children, with their razor-sharp claws and bioluminescent patterns. Crescian younglings, covered in armored scales. The facility kept them separate from prey species for obvious reasons. It was practical. It was logical. It was also, Kalen thought, incredibly lonely for them. He rounded the corner and stopped. For security officers in full protective gear surrounded the holding pen. Inside, 5 cubs huddled together, their bodies forming a defensive circle. The largest one, a Vaxorian cub with deep purple markings, stood at the front. Vash. Kalen recognized him immediately. The cub's lips were pulled back, revealing rows of needle-sharp teeth. His claws were extended, scraping against the floor. The other cubs behind him were smaller, younger, and absolutely terrified. "Stand down." The lead security officer barked through his helmet speaker. "We're transferring you to isolation chambers. There's been a contamination alert in this wing." Vash growled. It was a sound that should have been adorable coming from something so small, but it carried a promise of violence that made even the armored officers hesitate. "Use the restraint fields," another officer said, reaching for his belt. "Wait," Kalen said, stepping forward. All 4 officers turned to look at him. Through their helmet visors, he could see their irritation. "This area is restricted," the lead officer said. "You need to leave." "I'm the one who fixed the environmental controls in this wing last week," Kalen said calmly. "I know these kids. Let me talk to them." "Talk to them." The officer laughed. "They're predators. They don't talk. They bite." Kalen ignored him and walked toward the pen. The officers didn't stop him, probably curious to see what would happen. Vash's eyes locked onto him, those vertical pupils tracking his every movement. The growling didn't stop, but it changed slightly. Less aggressive, more uncertain. Kalen crouched down at the edge of the pen, making himself smaller. Less threatening. "Hey, Vash," he said softly. "Remember me?" The cub's ears twitched. Behind him, one of the smaller cubs whimpered. "I know you're scared," Kalen continued. "These guys look pretty scary in all that armor, don't they?" Vash didn't move, but his tail, which had been lashing back and forth, slowed slightly. "They're saying there's contamination in your wing. That means the air might be bad. They want to move you somewhere safe." Kalen kept his voice even, gentle. "But I get it. You don't know them. You don't trust them." One of the officers shifted impatiently behind him. Kalen raised a hand without looking back, a silent request for patience. "You know what I think happened?" Kalen said to Vash. "I think the alarm scared everyone. The little ones started crying, and you did what you're supposed to do. You protected them. That's good. That's exactly what a strong cub does." Vash's growling quieted to a low rumble. "But here's the thing," Kalen said. "Real strength isn't just about fighting. It's about knowing when to trust. Your parents trust us to keep you safe. That's why you're here." He slowly extended his hand, palm up, toward the pen's energy barrier. It was a stupid move. If Vash lunged, the barrier might not stop those claws completely. But Kalen had learned something in his months working at the station. Fear spread like wildfire among children, no matter what species they were. And so did calm. Vash stared at the hand. His nostrils flared, scenting the air. Slowly, the cub took one step forward. Then another. "That's it," Kalen murmured. "I'm not going to hurt you. None of us are." Behind Vash, the other cubs watched with wide eyes. A small Crescian youngling, barely bigger than Kalen's forearm, peeked out from behind Vash's shoulder. Vash reached the barrier. He lifted one paw, claws still extended, and pressed it against the energy field. Kalen could feel the vibration through the barrier as the cub's palm met his palm. "Good boy," Kalen whispered. The tension in the room shifted. Vash's ears, which had been pinned back, slowly rose. His tail stopped lashing. He looked back at the other cubs and made a soft chirping sound. Kalen stood up slowly and turned to the officers. Lower the barrier. I'll walk them to the isolation chambers. You'll what? The lead officer sounded incredulous. You're not trained for cub handling, especially not predator species. You're right, Kalen agreed. I'm not trained, but they trust me. That's worth more than training right now. The officers exchanged glances. Finally, the lead officer sighed. Fine, but we're following right behind you. One wrong move, and we're using the restraint fields. Kalen nodded. He looked at the control panel and lowered the barrier. The energy field flickered and disappeared. For a moment, nothing happened. Vash stood at the edge of the pen, looking at Kalen. Then, slowly, the cub stepped out. The other four followed, staying close to Vash. Kalen knelt down again. Okay, everyone. We're going to take a little walk. Stay close to me, and everything will be fine. He started walking toward the isolation chambers, moving slowly. Vash fell into step beside him, and the other cubs formed a tight cluster around the Vaxorian leader. The security officers followed at a distance, their weapons ready but not raised. They walked through the corridors in silence. Other station workers pressed against the walls, staring in disbelief as a human maintenance worker led a group of predator cubs like he was taking children on a field trip. When they reached the isolation chambers, Kalen opened the first door. The room inside was smaller than the main pen, but clean and comfortable. This is temporary, he told the cubs, just until we make sure the air is safe in your regular room. Vash looked into the chamber, then back at Kalen. The cubs' eyes were still cautious, but the aggression was gone. Go on, Kalen said gently. You'll be okay. Vash walked into the chamber. The other cubs followed. Before the door closed, Vash looked back at Kalen one more time and made that soft chirping sound again. Kalen smiled. You're welcome, buddy. The door sealed. The lead security officer removed his helmet and stared at Kalen. How did you do that? He asked. Kalen shrugged. I just treated them like kids. Because that's what they are. The officer shook his head slowly. Predators. You walked a pack of predator cubs through the station like they were pets. Not pets, Kalen corrected. Children. There's a difference. He turned and walked back toward the maintenance wing. Behind him, he could hear the officers talking in hushed, amazed tones. Kalen didn't think it was that amazing. He'd simply done what came naturally. He'd seen scared children, and he'd helped them feel safe. Apparently, in a galaxy full of advanced species and sophisticated protocols, that was the most alien thing of all.